Today's lesson is Chapter 6, Lesson 3, on pages 391 through 396. Our objective is I can multiply decimals by whole numbers. Vocabulary is multiply and factor. Question 1. Put the number with the greatest amount of digits on blank. Question 2. Count the digits in your factors behind the decimal point to know where to put the decimal point in your blank.
Whole numbers and decimals. First example, we have 7 and 8/10 times 3. So let's write these. So let's write it out. This 7 and 8/10 times 3. I always like to put the number that has the greatest amount of digits on the top. So let's multiply this like it's a whole number. 3 times 8. We have 24, we carry the 2, 7 times 3 is 21, plus 2 is 23. So we have 2, 3, 4 as the digits to our answer. Let's figure out where to put the decimal point now. So what we have to do is we have to look at each number individually. So we have 7 and 8/10. Start from the right side of the number. How many places do you move over until you find a decimal point? In this case, it's just 1. For the 3, there is no visible decimal point, so there's no decimal places there. So we add these together, we have a total of 1 decimal place. So we start from the right side of our answer and move over 1 space, and there's our answer, 23 4/10. Another way to look at some of these problems is to say that the 7 and 8/10, let's pretend it's an 8. So we'll kind of estimate here. So 8 times 3 is 24. So that means our actual answer is going to be close to 24. So putting the decimal point in between the 3 and the 4 in this case is the only logical place to put it. Let's just say I had put it in the very beginning of the number and I gave 234 thousandths as an answer. It's way too small. If I left the answer as 234, that's way too big. And if I had put the decimal point after the 2 and 34 hundredths, again, that's way too small. Because our answer has to be someplace close to 24. So 23 4/10 is the only logical answer. Moving along to the next one, we have 13 times 6/10. Okay, so let's write it out. So 13 times 6/10. So let's just multiply them like they're whole numbers here. 6 times 3 is 18. We carry the 1. 1 times 6 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And then when we have 2 digits down here, we have to, when we're putting our answer, we have to move over 1 space. So I like to put a placeholder there. So let's move over 1. So 0 times 3 is going to give us 0, and 0 times 1 is also going to give us 0. So let's add these together. We have 8, 7, and a 0. Let's figure out our decimal places. So up in the number 13, we have no visible decimal point, so we have 0 decimal places. Down here in 6/10, if I start at the right of the number and move over, it's 1 place till I find my decimal point. So I have a total of 1 decimal places to go. Start at the right of the number, move over 1 space, so my answer is 7 and 8/10. Next example, we have 152 times 1 and 4/10. Again, the number with the greatest amount of digits, let's put that on top, times 1 and 4/10. Let's just multiply. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 5 is 20. We're going to carry 2. 1 times 4 is 4, plus 2 is going to give us 6. Now let's put a place holding 0 there and move over 1 place. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 5 is 5. And 1 times 1 is 1. So we're going to add these together. That's going to give us 8, 2, 11. Let's carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So the digits of my answer is 2128. Let's figure our decimal places out. Let's go ahead and say for the 152, there is no visible decimal point, so we have 0 decimal places there. For the 1 and 4/10, we start at the right of the number, move over, after 1 space, we find our decimal. So we have a total of 1 decimal places. So let's take our answer all the way from the right, move over 1 space, and we have 212 8/10 as our answer.
Okay, so let's take a look at this in your book. I'm on page 391. So in your book, it gives you a few ways that you can multiply. So one way is repeated addition. So if you had a simpler problem like 4 times 3 and 62 hundredths, you could add 3 and 62 hundredths 4 times and see what that got you. But the other way, which the video just showed, was to multiply as you do with whole numbers and then to count the decimal places. So that's what the video is showing. So we line up 3 and 62 hundredths times 4. And then you multiply like you already know how. So 4 times 2 gives us 8. 6 times 4 gives us 24. So you put that 4 down, then you carry the 2. 3 times 4 is 12. Add in that 2, which is 14. So it looks like you have 1,448, but then you can't forget about your decimals. So you go back and count how many decimal places there were. So here there are 2 places to the right of the decimal. So not how many decimals there were, how many places there are to the right of your decimal. So here's our decimal, there's 2 places to the right. In this one, in this number, there's no decimal, so we don't have to worry about that. So we know that there's going to be 2 places to the right in our product. So that's where we can jump 2 places and put our decimal. And this is where the estimate is going to help you, like he said in the video. So I'm going to pick 4 times 4 to estimate, and I know 4 times 4 is 16, so my answer should be about 16. So 14 and 48 hundredths makes the most sense. So even if you got this number and you thought you would just leave it at 1,448, that would be way too big. So like he was saying in the video, that estimate really helps you when you're trying to figure out where your decimal should go. Okay, here's another important part on page 392. So let's say the problem is 3 times 96 hundredths. So first I'm going to estimate so I know where my decimal should about be. So I can round that 96 hundredths up to 1. So 3 times 1 is 3, so that's just my estimate. And now I can multiply as whole numbers. So the important part is that you write the number with the most digits on top. So since my 96 hundredths has the most digits, I'm going to put that on top. Then I'm going to multiply. So 6 times 3 is 18. Put my 8 down, carry my 1. 9 times 3, 27 plus 1, 28. Put my 8 down, carry my 2. 3 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2. So now I have to figure out where my decimal goes, and I know it shows it here, but let's pretend it doesn't. So I have to see how many places are to the right of my decimal in my first number, 2, and in my next number, 0. So I know I'm going to have my answer be a decimal with 2 places to the right. So I can jump 2 places, put my decimal, and then I check it with my estimate, and it's really close to my estimate, so I know it's reasonable. Alright, so look back at these 2 questions and answer them in the form, please.